Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of TacoBytes, your daily bite of Degen, episode number 860, coming to you live from somewhere, nowhere, Dallas, Texas. Same place where we were yesterday, unfortunately, or fortunately. It has been an amazing Monday. We get to hop in. We had Manifest Morpheus Monday. I had to steer the ship a little bit by myself. I wasn't prepped for that because I have usually a great co-host the last couple weeks as David Johnson has been traveling the world, actually specifically Davos, to red pill those at the great and wonderful WEF. Oh my gosh. But there's been some amazing updates this past week with Morpheus and Maintainer 11 updates. And so Bo, who's helped designing Decentralized AI Day or Week in Austin in April, wasn't able to make the initial space as he's always able to do, but he was able to come and join us for TacoBytes. And so now,
Awesome.
GM.
GM, thanks for having me. And sorry, yeah, I dropped the ball on the schedule, so I appreciate the flexibility. By the way, Taco, I didn't realize you were down in Dallas. I uh
Yeah,
I used to live in Bishop Arts. My wife and I did in 2021, just for a year.
I do not know where that is, as I live North Dallas in Frisco.
Oh, got
And
it. Okay.
yeah,
It's like it's in Dallas proper. It's just like southeast Dallas. But
all
anyway,
right.
that's besides the point. No, it's
Yeah,
thanks for having me join you again. David is fighting the good fight all around the world. Preaching the good word of decentralized AI.
yeah.
And today, I'm sure you covered, some of this earlier, but today was a massive day, and really the past couple days, just in DAI in general. I mean, where do you want to start? Do we start with the Venice news? Do we start with China trying to steal all of our brains? Um,
Man, it is. There is so many places to start because it's almost a reverse of how we were going to be talking about today. Um, and so some things haven't changed. Let's talk about DeepSeek for a moment.
sure.
You
So
know,
yeah, so the lingering question here is it real in the sense that did a handful of developers in China really build this thing for, out of popsicle sticks and glue, basically? Like, did they really build this thing with a $10 million alleged budget or whatever it is? Meanwhile, we have billions and billions of dollars being sunken into things like OpenAI, ChatGPT, Claude, name your favorite centralized AI service, and they have spent the money. And I don't necessarily mean that as a slight to those services, but that's the big question. The big question is it real in the sense that did they actually build this thing with that tight of a budget? If they did, are we heavily overvaluing some of these AI companies that are producing these models? Because if China can do it for $10 million, do we really need $500 billion to outpace it here with, things like Stargate in the US? That is the $1 trillion question, I think, right now that no one to my knowledge has the answer to quite yet.
and so like my use of like I could have gone to chat.deepseek.com, but I chose it got integrated with Venice day one because one of the big things that they did was they open sourced it right away, put it up on Hugging Face. Venice forked it and loaded it up, and it's running on decentralized compute. Their model is running on decentralized compute via Kosh and a few other networks, which is really cool. And so uh, that was the scary part. Like, have we been coming at this from a different approach and putting too much money? And did they just break away and figure out a way to simplify it? You
Yeah,
know?
possibly. Well, and either way, I think the big lesson here is that the money to be made and the things to be developed in AI, in my opinion, are not in model training. They are in inference via compute or inference via use case, being agents or you routing to the compute. And so that's really largely what DAI is focused on. I mean, there are obviously decentralized models being trained as well. I think that not so much from a cost perspective, but from a principles perspective, what has just happened and hopefully, opened much of the market's eyes to what's going on is a huge win for something like BitTensor. If people see
Hmm.
something like DeepSeek and they say, "Hey, I don't like this idea that I have this AI tool that's out benchmarking OpenAI's ChatGPT, but when I ask it a question about Tiananmen Square, now all of a sudden it hushes up and doesn't want to give me an answer, right? And so that is, I think, going to appeal a lot of people to why the decentralization and lack of censorship, or not lack of censorship, but just transparent censorship is so important with modeling. And you have something
Hmm.
like BitTensor, which is building all these subnets that are basically trying to be optimal models in XYZ niche that they're set up to fill. So from a principles perspective, I think that's a huge win for something like BitTensor. From a use case perspective and cash flow perspective, it is a massive win for stuff like Morpheus, stuff like Venice AI, stuff like Manifold. I mean, anybody who's working on the infrastructure of DAI, this is now highlighting, hey, maybe again, maybe we can build a huge model or a very powerful model for $10 million and we don't need $500 billion. But what we do need is the infrastructure and the demand routing to actually create those use cases.
Yeah, and so there was two parts of me, like what the bias, internal biasness of going to a Chinese site and using this model, because we've seen the horrors of what's really happening behind the scenes with open AI. And that's why I didn't go directly to um, DeepSeek site to use it, and instead went via the route of Venice. And right away, I hit some rule breaking, not necessarily around the Tiananmen Square, as I went and did myself this morning or this afternoon to go test it out. Um, but it was around like I forget what it was. Oh, around its training data,
Mm.
and knowledge base. And so then I was able to sort of flesh out that it had rules, and went through. It had 5 rules that it was sort of supposed to give, and I felt they were more training model rules from Venice, sort of like how to respond to every question, give truth, don't give fake URLs, only give a URL if it's in the original prompt, and then at the same time answer in the same language that was last spoken to you. There was another
Mm.
rule that sort of followed into those plays as well, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. And so
Well,
it really showed the biasness there almost, you know?
yeah, but that's also the beauty of open source, right? Is you could go see what those rules are. Now, when you extrapolate that modeling to something like ChatGPT, where Sam Altman and OpenAI ultimately sets the rules for you, and not only are they setting the rules, but the rules are not transparent, so you don't even know what the rules are. That
Mhm.
is where we run into a major issue. And so, if you're using DeepSeek, for example, through the DeepSeek app, so you're acknowledging, you're basically accepting all of the rules set up by the whoever runs the app, which in this case seems to be President Xi for all
The
intents and
CCP.
purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Then yes, you're basically enabling yourself to only use a product that is filtering for what they want it to be filtered for, but you can at least see what the filters are, right? Which is the big battle. That alone like is one of the biggest things that we need to focus on decentralization for. It's the same reason that DeFi money is so important, and honestly, I'll be stealing this from Eric Voorhees. I think he said it best in his permissionless keynote. But we are not a community that wants lawlessness and anarchy. In fact, we are the opposite of that. We just want rules that are transparent, make sense, and not able to be warped by the powers that be. I want the rules for me to be the same as the rules for Elizabeth Warren when she decides to go in and do XYZ thing on DeFi, or as Sam Altman or Elon Musk or whoever else when they decide to use AI tools. And I just want to know what the rules are. What is the game that we're playing and what are the rules? And that's really, I think, what we all want out of this, or at least, should want out of this. And something like DeepSeek getting the popularity it has in such a short period of time now really highlights that. And I think it is like a massive win for DAI at large.
We've had sort of, it's been like a whirlwind week. I think it was Thursday that, or was it Wednesday that Sam Altman and President Trump announced Stargate? Was that Wednesday or Thursday?
I think it was last Wednesday evening, I think, or maybe it was Thursday.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was right after we did. Yeah, I think it was Wednesday. I think you're right.
yeah, and so that came on the heels where, to me, I'll be honest, I sort of felt like that was a setup at one point, because it was seeming like as much animosity as between that Elon might have for open AI not being open, as he says. It was a big change to where Altman was all of a sudden, $500 billion, $100 billion in instant liquidity, and Elon sort of calling him out right away. You don't got the money. But we saw also SoftBank being included in this deal in some way, where OpenAI would own 40%, SoftBank would own the other 40%, and I would assume maybe the government owns the other 20. And so that just sort of does this weird loop that Altman was sort of left out to flounder and look like a fish on that.
Yeah, well, I have kind of two things on this. The first is Grok open source? Because it's a little bit throwing stones from glass houses if Grok is not also open source. Now, I have no qualms with Elon specifically. I've never met the guy. I would love to pick his brain sometime if I'm ever, given the opportunity, of course. But when it comes to the actual modeling, to my knowledge, Grok is also not open source. So it's kind of just, two centralized players arguing over who has the Trump administration's favor in any given moment.
Mhm.
Aside from that, though, isn't it humorous how all of last week we have billionaires arguing over whether or not they're able to raise enough hundreds of billions of dollars to create this project, only for this Chinese-based project to now come out and say, we did it for 10 million bucks,
We
or,
did it
or
for 10
whatever it
million
is.
bucks,
Yeah.
and here it is for free.
Yep, exactly. And so it's one, so funny how quickly
Open
the
source.
narrative shift, and two, it's also just exemplary as to why the model, or why the market rather, had such an overreaction the way that it did. I mean, Nvidia pre-market trading last night was
Mhm.
dumping like crazy, which is kind
Yeah.
of goofy if you think about it, because even if the models are cheap to train, you still need chips to run them. So you still need the inference. So in a way, it's goofy, but I guess what that kind of shows me is a lot of the valuation being done, and in this case, I guess overvaluation with something like Nvidia stock, is being
Mhm.
done based off of a basically a market projection of how much inference do we need to train a model, not necessarily how much inference do we need to use models. Because
Yeah.
what if a model needed no inference to train? Like, what if you could train a singular model on like one Mac, but you still need how many millions of chips to actually use them in practice when you start implementing things like smart agents or um, smart technology like self-driving cars. When we have self-driving cars, that's so much inference.
Yep. And what I haven't even gone into the specs necessarily of what a Tesla is running internally on all of its sensors, but I know that it's doing constant updates and communicating outside and back and forth to update its data sources, update its learning knowledge, especially on object identifications. So, like you said, it's not. It might, if like the perfect model for like a zero shot model uh, could be made, where you always just have a blank slate and you can give it what you need, and it can infer out of that the patterns that you might be looking for or the answer. That's some brown breaking groundbreaking stuff there. Oh my gosh, I had my B's and G's mixed up. But and what was interesting, another odd thing that happened last night, there's an AI project called Vault that is out there in partnership with like Turbo Puffer and Cohere. The AI engineer behind Vault uh, found that a token had been made in his name. And so he went and made a
Mm.
token, like, no, that is a scam. I'm just going to make a random token to uh, front run this and at least show you that it's safe and stuff like that. And I met him last night. I met Posh last night simply out of the fact that he was asking for help on running a Twitter space.
Wow.
And so I was like, I can do that. That's easy. I'll answer. I'll help a new streamer out. I don't know anything about you. And then I got to learn what's going on and, how he's been building a really cool container model that can do like unlimited token name holding. So it can have that persistent memory and stuff like that. One of the use cases was comparing building codes. So like giving it plans and something, and then it can check to make sure that it may or may not comply with all the current rules, and if it violates any past rules as well, because some models will just give, oh, it's violated by this 1927 rule, and it won't go any deeper, but then it won't see like the overturned piece. So it was a really interesting conversation and piece to sort of get involved in last night. And I just sort of love this open source building side of things.
Oh yeah, and it's moving so fast too, which is great. I mean, I think every single day I find out about someone who's working on something new and maybe has been for a while, but it just hasn't been as public yet, and then it comes out and it's amazing. I mean, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
I
Let's talk
find
Venice really quick before I got to run.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to run into next.
So, okay, so Venice does their surprise token drop today, or airdrop rather, which is awesome. I would highly encourage everyone who's listening to check out their thread that they posted on Twitter, on their official Twitter, running through how the tokenomics work and how exactly the airdrop worked. They had basically there's benefactories within many different ecosystems, Morpheus being one of them. And they are a registered builder on more.org as well. So we will see, what they continue to do with that.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely did not know that they were going live with the token. I was as surprised by it as anybody and everybody, I guess. Which is really cool, and the mechanism is great. I mean, you can basically hold VVV tokens and stake them to your pro account on Venice, and in return for that, get access to things like API inference and basically pro rata share of inference based on your current stake. The APY right now to earn more tokens is something like 1,300% or something outrageous. So if anybody did receive their airdrop and wants to be a long-term holder, now would be the time to place your stake.
It is down to 967% right now.
Oh, it's crashing. Okay. It was 1,500 earlier.
It's not crashing. It's with APR farm bonds, the more people that are in it, not the tokens, but the more people, it spreads that APY out.
The pro rata share is decreasing. Yeah, sorry. The actual, I should be more careful about my words. Just the APY, the APR is becoming balanced, basically, is what will happen. And this happens with. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, it's an interesting place. So from the DeFi perspective of it, the standard form is usually dropping into Uniswap. Instead, they move forward with Aerodrome.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I did as soon as I claimed my tokens, was put into liquidity pools on Aerodrome, the two different liquidity pools that they have there, as well as staking within the app. So I now have 0 tokens in my wallet because I have to wait 24 hours for the rest of my tokens to be airdropped. But just for people, even if they didn't have a pro account, if they had set up a Wallet Connect account with Venice, they have an airdrop, which is
I think
really
EPA
awesome
accrued
thing.
more than 25 use points, I think it was.
Yep, 25 points, but literally that's asking it 25 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Or logging in 25 times. And I know last night I think I asked it about 1,000 questions because I was using DeepSeek to translate Chinese for me and to give answers back into Chinese. So that was a little fun piece there. But no, it is. Eric is awesome. Tina, one of the head of Venice, I messaged her last night or yesterday afternoon, seeing if she could join our space. And she's like, yeah, I have a few things going on. I could pop in. And I'm like, oh, airdropping $250 million is,
Yeah, just a couple things going on. Yeah.
yeah, just a
She's like,
couple.
I'm grabbing lunch, I got coffee, $250 million airdrop, picking up my kids, normal stuff.
Yeah, it's a Monday.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and she wasn't able to obviously join us because, they're under, but we do are way overdue for a space with her as well.
Oh man,
I
I would love the opportunity to get to pick her brain as well. If we have extra spots on that space, I'd love to be a part of that.
definitely, definitely. I've done a lot of work for Venice, which has been really fun to do. I think I onboarded maybe like 180 people onto Venice during Token 2049,
Wow.
which was
It's not
a
actually
really
an AI, it's Taco typing back to you with a bunch of Google tabs open.
fun.
Yeah. No, I'm just
don't,
kidding.
don't talk
That's
about the
amazing,
hamster and
man.
the wheel.
That's right.
Don't,
Yeah. I'm just kidding you a hard time. Taco, I hate to cut you off. I do have a 3 p.m. hard stop, but I
yeah,
did want to jump on though and discuss some of this stuff, especially because I missed our deadline. And I am looking forward to next Monday. I will be there.
definitely, definitely,
And
definitely. And
also ETH Denver. I'll see you coming up in ETH Denver as well.
East Denver, I will see you there. Don't we have an event in Austin this week for
Um,
AI?
Not
Or did
this
I get
week.
two?
We have one coming up. At least maybe I'm not on a schedule for one at least.
Okay.
But we
We
have a
do
big
have, we have,
announcement for us coming up. I'm gonna wait for the official announcement for that, but it is in the works and we'll be here soon.
we don't get any alpha?
There's a everyone should head to Austin in the third week of April for a lot of stuff. That's your output.
Yep.
There's a lot of great stuff going on down there.
Yes, there is. Bo, thank you so much for joining. Let's end this the right way as we end this every episode the same way. With those that are on stage with us, they have to go through the pain. Uh, final thoughts and words of wisdom. 10 seconds.
My final thoughts. Yep, my final thoughts are DAI is accelerating even faster than I and many others heavily involved in the space thought it was going to. This is extremely healthy for all of humanity, and we're doing something that is a net positive for people, which beyond the money, beyond the cool toys that are going to come out of this is a movement that it is about liberty of information for people. And my words of wisdom are to do your own research with regard to those topics and why they are so important. And when you understand why liberty over information and privacy is a fundamental right that you deserve to have, you will find teams who are building those rights for you, and you can join them and help them make that happen. Right. So that is what I'll leave you with is that is, at least for me, the core principle that is driving all of this.
All right. And as always, my words of wisdom and final thoughts are always the same. A closed mouth cannot be fed, and you cannot feed a closed mouth, meaning if no one knows you're looking for opportunity, opportunity can never come a knocking. If opportunity does come knocking and no one answers, it's going to keep on walking. I want to thank everyone for joining us for TacoBytes, your daily bite of Degen, episode number 860. Manifest Morpheus Monday, part 2 with Bo live on camera. Bo, this is out of honor of those that come before us and memory of those that come after us. I have told this knock knock joke 859 times, and this is how we end every show. Are you ready to help with this?
You got it.
All right. Knock knock.
Who's there?